Have you ever felt that sting in your chest when your kids brush off your advice, talk over you, or treat you like you're just there? You've spent years raising them, guiding them, putting their needs before your own, only to wake up one day and realize the roles have flipped. They don't respect you the way they used to, and it hurts, maybe more than you're willing to admit. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, and here's the big question. What if you could turn it all around without a single argument or angry word? In this video, I'm sharing 6 powerful, simple shifts you can make to regain your children's respect and reclaim your place as a valued figure in their lives. These aren't just quick fixes, they're game changers that hit deep, transforming how your kids see you, maybe even how you see yourself. Stick with me until the end, because you'll uncover surprising strategies that could stop the disrespect cold, rebuild your confidence, and bring back that connection you've been missing. Plus, I'll show you real stories, like Margaret's, Frank's, and Helen's, that prove this works, no matter how far things have slipped. Don't miss out. Your breakthrough is waiting. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Action 1. Stop chasing their approval. One of the hardest lessons for parents to learn, especially as they age, is the importance of not constantly seeking their children's approval. It's something that many of us do without even realizing it, and it's heartbreaking to admit. Maybe you've noticed yourself doing it, bending over backward to make your children happy, suppressing your own needs and desires, saying yes when your heart is screaming no, all in the hope that if you just keep pleasing them, they'll notice how much you've sacrificed for them. You believe that maybe, just maybe, they'll appreciate you more, love you more, respect you. But here's the painful, gut-wrenching truth. The more you chase their approval, the further you push them away. It's not easy to swallow, but it's real. In trying so desperately to win their affection, we sometimes lose sight of the most crucial thing, our self-respect. Respect isn't something that can be bought with endless sacrifices. It's something that comes from standing firm in who we are. When you're constantly giving in, constantly giving more of yourself than you have to give, you're not showing your children that you love them. Instead, you're teaching them that your feelings, your needs, your boundaries don't matter. That you can be pushed, bent, and molded to fit their desires without ever asking for anything in return. And the truly painful part? Once they see you as someone who will always bend, always give, and always stay silent, it becomes so easy for them to take you for granted. I think of Margaret, a woman I once knew who had lived a life of strength and independence. In her younger years, she was a force to be reckoned with. Confident, self-assured, and unafraid to speak her mind. But as she grew older, something shifted. She began to place her children's needs above her own, rearranging her entire life around their whims and desires. She stopped voicing her opinions, letting them make all the decisions, and even ignored the way they spoke to her, even when they were dismissive or rude. "I just want to keep the family together," she confided in me one day, her voice filled with such raw vulnerability. But instead of bringing her closer to them, all her efforts only created distance. Her children no longer saw her as the strong woman she once was. They saw her as someone who would always adjust, always say yes, and always remain silent. They no longer respected her. They simply took advantage of her. It's heartbreaking to see this happen, and I know, deep down, that Margaret wished she had drawn those lines in the sand earlier. But it's never too late. The reality is that self-respect isn't a luxury. It's a necessity, not just for you, but for your children as well. By showing them that you have boundaries, that you have needs, that you deserve to be heard and valued just as much as they do, you set an example for them. You teach them to appreciate the person you are, not just what you do for them. And most importantly, you remind yourself that your worth isn't measured by your ability to constantly please others. Your worth comes from your dignity, your self-love, and your ability to stand tall, even when the world around you demands that you shrink. Action 2. Don't argue, lead by example. When your children dismiss your opinions, speak over you, or treat you with disrespect, it's only natural to feel a surge of anger or frustration. You may want to shout, to remind them of all you've done for them, to demand that they listen and acknowledge your wisdom. But let me share a lesson that will save you countless years of heartache and disappointment. Arguing, no matter how justified it may seem in the moment, never works. Think about it. How often has fighting ever changed someone's heart? When was the last time you truly convinced someone to respect you through a heated exchange? Respect isn't something you can force with words or demands. It's not a prize to be claimed by winning an argument. True respect is earned, not in the noise of confrontation, but in the quiet strength of how you carry yourself and how you respond in the face of disrespect. If you meet their impatience and disregard with anger, all you're doing is feeding into their belief that they have the power to provoke you. You're not strengthening your position, you're weakening it. You're giving them the control they want. I remember a man named Frank, a retired teacher who had dedicated his life to shaping young minds. A man full of wisdom, patience, and experience. But at home, Frank found himself facing a far different reality. His grown children, whom he had once cared for and guided, had started treating him like he was invisible. They ignored his advice, dismissed his concerns, and sometimes laughed behind his back when he tried to correct them. It hurt. It hurt deeply, because he had spent years pouring himself into them, sacrificing his own time and energy to make sure they grew up right. And now, as an elder, he was being reduced to nothing more than a voice to be ignored. In the beginning, Frank tried to fight back. His first instinct was to argue, to remind them of everything he had done for them, of the sacrifices he had made, of the wisdom he had earned through his own life struggles. But no matter how hard he tried, the more he fought, the worse it got. The more he pushed, the further away they seemed to retreat. It was as if his words fell on deaf ears. But one day, something shifted in Frank. He realized that fighting for respect, arguing for it, was only making things worse. Instead of continuing to try and prove himself to them, he decided to do something radical. He chose to stop arguing altogether. Frank decided to listen, not just to reply but to understand. He let go of his need to chase after their approval and instead focused on carrying himself with dignity and calmness, no matter how they treated him. He spoke less, but when he did speak, it was with wisdom that didn't need to be defended. He became a man who didn't need to convince anyone of his worth. He already knew who he was. His presence, his actions, his calm demeanor spoke volumes louder than any argument ever could. He started to live out the truth. Respect is not demanded, it is given freely when you stop seeking it so desperately. Over time, Frank's children began to notice the change. It wasn't immediate, but slowly, they started seeing their father in a new light. They noticed that he no longer reacted to their disrespect with anger or frustration. He was a man who had nothing to prove and everything to give. And in that space of quiet strength, his children began to realize something. Respect isn't something you fight for, it's something that is freely given when it's clear you no longer need it. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. So, my dear friend, when you find yourself in the position of being dismissed or disrespected, remember Frank's journey. Don't waste your precious energy fighting for something that can only be earned through self-assurance. Instead, lead by example. Show your strength in your silence, in your calm, and in your unwavering confidence in who you are. In the end, this will be the thing that changes not just the way your children see you, but the way they respect you. Action 3. Withdraw your emotional dependence. One of the most challenging and heart-wrenching lessons you will face as you age is the realization that you can't rely on your children for emotional fulfillment. This truth can be incredibly painful, especially after you've given so much of yourself to raise and love them. The idea that, despite all your sacrifices, your children might not be able to fulfill your emotional needs can feel like a betrayal. But, as hard as it is to admit, this lesson is vital for your well-being and for preserving the integrity of your relationships. The love you have for your children runs deep, an unconditional love that perhaps no one else could ever understand. You want them to love you back with the same intensity. You want them to respect you, to show affection, and to make you feel valued. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you need them to give you that validation, something changes. The relationship dynamic shifts. Instead of a balanced, healthy bond, you create an emotional dependency that can suffocate both you and them. The moment you depend on them to make you feel worthy, they sense it. And believe me, they will feel it. It's only natural for people, even your children, to respect those who seem self-sufficient, emotionally strong, and independent. But when you place the weight of your happiness and self-worth on their shoulders, you unintentionally burden them. This pressure, though likely unintended, can cause them to feel trapped and overwhelmed. They may start pulling away, distancing themselves emotionally, and even treating you with impatience, frustration, or worse, irritation. They won't understand why they're feeling this way, but the truth is, they are not your emotional caretakers. And the more you chase after their love and attention, the more distant they may become, emotionally and physically. I can't help but remember a woman I once knew, a kind and loving mother named Helen. She was everything any child could ask for, a selfless woman who gave her all to her family. But as her children grew older and their lives became busier, she found herself feeling more and more alone. She would wait by the phone, hoping for just one call, one sign of affection from her children. And when that call didn't come, her heart would sink. She would pick up the phone herself, again and again, sometimes too often, trying to rekindle the connection she so desperately needed. She'd remind them how much she missed them, how she longed to see them, how empty her days felt without them. But instead of drawing them closer, her desperation for their love only pushed them away. Those calls began to feel like an obligation to her children, not something they looked forward to. What once was a connection full of love slowly turned into something burdensome. Then, one day, something in Helen clicked. She realized that she couldn't continue down this path. She stopped waiting by the phone. She stopped calling first. Instead, she chose to focus on herself. She began to nurture her happiness. She took up new hobbies, spent time with friends, rediscovered passions she had long neglected, and started taking care of her well-being, both physically and emotionally. She began to build a life that didn't revolve around her children. And to her surprise, her children noticed. They started calling more often, genuinely wanting to hear from her. They began to treat her with more respect, valuing her time, seeing her as a woman who had a full life, not just a mother in waiting. Helen's transformation didn't just change her, it changed the way her children viewed her. They began to see her as a strong, independent woman, someone who didn't need them to feel fulfilled, but rather, someone who had her own life and joy. And that, in turn, inspired them to value her presence in a way they never had before. The lesson here is undeniable. The less you depend on your children to fulfill your emotional needs, the more they will begin to respect you, not out of obligation, but because they admire the strength you've shown in building a full, rich life on your own. The more you stand on your own 2 feet, the more they will want to be a part of your life, and the more they will respect and cherish the relationship you share. It's a painful but liberating truth that can set you free. You are not here to simply be someone else's emotional anchor. You are your person, worthy of love, respect, and fulfillment, no matter where it comes from. When you stop relying on your children for validation, you give them the space to see you as an independent, powerful force in your own right, and that will make all the difference in how they relate to you. Action 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. One of the most painful and heartbreaking realizations for many parents is the moment they understand that their children no longer show them the respect they once did. And in many cases, this disrespect stems from one simple truth: the parents allowed it. It's so easy to think, it's just a phase, or they're going through something, and I should let it slide. But the truth is, when you allow your children to talk down to you, dismiss your thoughts and feelings, or treat you as if your time and emotions are irrelevant, it becomes a dangerous cycle that only deepens with time. It's not that they are bad people. It's that we, as human beings, will often treat others in ways that reflect what we feel they will tolerate. And that includes our children. The sad reality is that if you don't stand up for yourself, they won't see the need to either. Setting boundaries is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean you have to shut out your children or create a wall of hostility. No, setting boundaries is about self-respect. It's about calmly, firmly, and lovingly making it clear what kind of treatment you will and will not accept. And perhaps most importantly, it's about showing them that you will not let them cross those boundaries without consequences. It's about making sure they understand that you are still a person worthy of their respect, regardless of your age or position in the family. I recall a man named Robert, who, like so many others, had spent his life building his career with unwavering discipline and confidence. He was a retired businessman, respected by everyone who worked with him. But when it came to his adult children, he faltered. They would interrupt him while he spoke, disregard his concerns as if they didn't matter, and even openly criticize the way he chose to live his life. At first, Robert brushed it off. He told himself it wasn't worth the conflict. He thought, I'm older now. I don't need to fight every battle. I'll just let it go. But what he didn't realize was that with each moment of silence, with each instance of allowing them to walk all over him, he was unintentionally teaching them that this behavior was acceptable, and that was a lesson he could no longer ignore. One day, Robert decided enough was enough. He made a decision that would change the way his children saw him forever. When his son interrupted him yet again, Robert simply said, I'll continue speaking when you're ready to listen. It wasn't angry. It wasn't harsh. It was simply a firm boundary. When his daughter dismissed his opinion yet again, he looked at her calmly and said, You don't have to agree with me, but I expect you to respect me. It was clear, it was loving, and it was firm. But the most important part, he enforced it. He didn't just say the words and walk away. When his children continued to test his limits, he made it clear that if they could not treat him with basic respect, he would no longer be spending his time with them. He wouldn't tolerate it. And what happened? His children started listening. At first, they pushed back, of course. They were used to treating him however they liked. But over time, they saw something change in their father. They saw that Robert valued himself enough to stand his ground. They saw that he was a man of his word, someone who would not allow disrespect. And because of that, something remarkable happened. They started respecting him again. They started listening to him, not because they were forced to, but because they realized he would no longer accept anything less than their best. This is the power of boundaries. It's not just about protecting yourself, it's about showing others that you are worthy of respect and demanding that they treat you as such. It's about teaching your children how to honor you not out of obligation, but out of understanding. It's about reclaiming your voice and your dignity in a way that uplifts you, while helping those around you grow as well. I believe that every parent, no matter their age, deserves to be respected. It's never too late to set the boundaries that will restore that respect and strengthen the bond between you and your children. Action 5. Stop giving without appreciation. One of the most heartbreaking and soul-crushing experiences is when you give endlessly, pouring out your time, energy, and love, only to be met with indifference. It's a reality that many parents face, perhaps without even realizing it. We offer our support, our care, our very selves, sometimes at the expense of our well-being. Yet so often, it feels like it's taken for granted. Our kindness isn't met with gratitude, but with a sense of entitlement. And here's where the pain lies. When you give and give to people who don't value it, something deep inside begins to erode. You don't build love, you don't build respect. Instead, You foster a sense of expectation. They stop seeing your sacrifices as precious gifts, as acts of kindness. They see it as their due. They begin to feel like they have the right to take, and when you stop giving, they don't feel grateful. They feel inconvenienced, almost as if you've done something wrong. I can think of a man named George, a father who, for years, gave everything to his children. Financial support, his time, his emotional energy. No matter what, George was always there for them. He rearranged his life, made countless sacrifices, and always showed up. But despite all of this, he wasn't met with gratitude. Instead, his children complained. They didn't thank him, they simply expected more. And when the day came that George needed help, when he was vulnerable and in need of support, they were nowhere to be found. Too busy, too consumed in their own lives. But George, though heartbroken, made a powerful decision. He stopped overextending himself. He stopped offering help before it was even asked. And most importantly, he started saying no when he needed to. At first, his children were upset. They didn't understand why their father wasn't running himself ragged for them anymore. But something magical happened over time. Slowly, they began to realize his time, his generosity, his love. It wasn't limitless. It was a gift. A gift that had to be earned. A gift that required respect. And as painful as it was, George's decision to put himself first again made his children start to value him, to truly appreciate him. It wasn't until he stopped giving without acknowledgement that they understood the worth of what he had offered all along. If you find yourself in a similar place, feeling as though your children don't respect your time, your energy, or your kindness, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, am I giving more than I should? Because sometimes, the most powerful lesson you can teach is that your generosity is conditional on respect. When people learn to treat your love and time as something valuable, not something they're entitled to, they begin to see it in a whole new light. And that shift, it can restore your relationship in ways you never thought possible. Action 6. Build a life outside of them. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. We all know how it feels to pour ourselves into our children's lives, to prioritize their happiness above all else. It's the instinct of any loving parent. But as time goes on, as we grow older and our children grow up, the balance begins to shift. And it's so important, especially in our later years, to recognize when we've given so much of ourselves that we've forgotten the importance of our fulfillment. The sad truth is that if you've spent your entire life focusing on your children's needs, your own identity may begin to fade into the background. And if they perceive you as someone who has nothing else to offer, no life beyond them, it can create a subtle yet profound sense of disconnect. It's a terrible feeling, and it can inadvertently suffocate the relationship, leaving both parties feeling drained and distant. I remember a woman named Eleanor, a widow in her late 70s, who had devoted herself entirely to her children after the death of her husband. Her life became a never-ending cycle of calls, advice, and trying to fill the emotional gap left by her spouse. She needed her children to provide the companionship her husband once did. But instead of drawing them closer, this constant neediness drove them away. Their visits became less frequent, their calls shorter, and Eleanor found herself feeling more and more isolated, even though she was surrounded by family. But then, Eleanor made a life-changing choice. She decided to build a life that was hers and hers alone. She joined a book club, started traveling with friends, and volunteered at a local community center. She stopped making her children the sole center of her world. And you know what happened? Her children, seeing their mother independent and fulfilled, began to reach out to her more. They began to take an interest in her life, to admire her strength, her ability to enjoy life outside of them. They respected her more, they loved her more, because they saw that she was not just their mother. She was a woman in her own right, with her passions and purpose. It's easy to think that our lives should revolve around our children, But the reality is that our children need to see us as whole, vibrant individuals. When we build a life outside of them, when we have our passions, our friendships, our sense of fulfillment, they begin to respect us in a deeper, more meaningful way. It reminds them that we are not just parents. We are people who deserve love, respect, and happiness. So, if you're feeling like your children don't appreciate you, don't settle for sacrificing everything for them. Start building your own life again. Reconnect with the things that make you feel alive. And watch as the respect you crave from them begins to flourish. You are worthy of it, and it's never too late to create a life that is as rich and fulfilling as the love you've given them. As we come to the end of this video, I hope you've gained valuable insights on how to foster more respect in your relationships, especially with your children, and how to honor yourself in the process. We've explored the importance of not giving without appreciation and the power of building a life outside of your children. These are not just practical tips. They are tools to help you reclaim your sense of self-worth, set healthy boundaries, and ultimately create stronger, more respectful relationships. So, what have you learned from today's video? What's one thing that stood out to you the most, and how will you bring it into practice in your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below and share your reflections with us. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave a comment, and if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring more content that empowers and uplifts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.